What is up, everybody, and thank you for joining us here on the 5th episode of Gridiron Fights. This is the podcast, the show where we take two of the best that have ever done it at their position, take all the statistics, the accolades, intangibles, and see who we believe is the better player. Go ahead and check out some of our earlier episodes. We had Steve Young versus Troy Aikman. We had POLAMALU Reed, Witten Gates, and plenty more. So T.O. Moss, you know, that's how we do it up. So we're doing it here for the 5th time. And on this episode, we are comparing two of the greatest cornerbacks of all time, in my opinion. Not just recent memory, but of all time. This is none other than Ty Law versus Champ Bailey.
Yes, this one's one I'm pretty excited about. You know, you think of Ty Law and the Super Bowls, but you realize how close these two really are. And I mean, when we did the research, the stats bear out. I mean, they are almost neck and neck in every statistical category for defensive backs. And yeah, it's one of those where you can make a case for either one, and that's what we're going to do.
Yeah, so let me start off by giving a little background on Ty Law, because I'm taking Ty Law on this one, man. It's close. It was tough. I think I got a little bit of an uphill battle, to be honest with you. But yeah. I think in the end, you know, I'm going to change a few minds out there. So look, Ty Law may not be the marquee name that Champ Bailey is or was. I don't think he was as athletically gifted as Champ Bailey. When you see some of the plays Champ Bailey was making out of there, it's like magic.
Yes.
Talked about seeing some of those highlights, and I mean that toe tap against the New Orleans Saints to make the INT in the end zone, that's a thing of beauty.
There were many times where you thought he was the receiver running the route. I mean, we're talking about, you know, being able to catch a ball with your toes in, falling down. That's special. You know, when I look at Ty Law, you could tell he was playing cornerback. He played it great, but you could tell he was the cornerback in the plays. I mean, they had Champ Bailey playing wide receiver and running back every once in a while.
Yeah.
To show about how much of an athlete he really was.
Yeah, definitely. He wins the athleticism contest for sure, without a doubt. But as usual, with a few exceptions, like maybe the Randy Moss episode, I try to stick with the more consistent player. The one that's more like, hey, grab your hard hat, grab your lunch pail, get to work, get the win. And I think we too often overlook like a low-key champion like Ty Law for the marquee name of a Champ Bailey. I think Ty Law is just one of those guys that, you know, a lot of us forget. He was truly the first on-the-field leader under Bill Belichick until he passed the torch to his fellow Michigan Wolverine alum, Tom Brady.
Yes.
And who knows, you know, without Ty Law being there to set the flame, maybe we never know the torch that is the New England Patriots dynasty.
Yeah, I mean, I get you with that, because when I look at what he was able to do, especially being able to early on get the best of Peyton Manning. Most of the times when Peyton Manning was losing to New England, it was because he was throwing picks to Ty Law. And at one point, I felt like he just didn't know anywhere else to throw but at Ty Law.
Yeah. I mean, it's like I was saying earlier when we were watching some of the highlights, it's like he's got magnets for every football that comes out of Peyton Manning's hand.
Yes.
I mean,
and no business throwing. Like, how did he catch that?
And even when he left the Patriots, we were watching somewhere, he's still throwing picks to him on the Chiefs.
Yeah.
He's still throwing picks to him on the Jets.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure that wherever Peyton Manning is in his worst nightmares, it's Ty Law.
It's Ty Law waiting to pick him off.
That's it, you know, for sure. But give me a little background on Champ Bailey.
So Champ Bailey, funny enough, not real name, Roland Champ Bailey.
I bet you there's very few people that know that out there.
Very few.
Yeah.
I don't even think some of his family,
right.
His cousins may not have known what his first name. So, All-American out of Georgia, first round pick of the Washington Redskins in 99, was traded 5 years later to the Denver Broncos. During his time, amassed 12 Pro Bowls. Back when Pro Bowls actually meant something. Remember when Pro Bowls actually had meaning?
Yeah,
he has the most for a cornerback. 203 passes defensed. That's the most. It's an NFL record. And when I talk about passes defensed, the number one goal for a corner is to get an interception. That's the ultimate way you end a play. The second most is to be able to defend it when it's in your route. When it's somewhere being close to you, you're able to defend that pass. Be able to knock it down, keep it out of the receiver's hand, keep it away. And he did that better than any other corner. He's also a 3-time All-Pro, whereas I believe Ty Law was a 2-time All-Pro. Career best, 52 interceptions with 4 touchdowns. Also leads against Ty Law in tackles and forced fumbles. And, you know, during his best stretch, which was when he was an All-Pro, was 2004 to 2006. 21 interceptions, 3 touchdowns, 56 pass breakups, compared to when I looked up Ty Law's best, which was 01 to 03 when he was getting his all-pro nods. 13 interceptions, 3 touchdowns, 46 pass breakups.
Yeah, I think the big difference is in the pass breakups.
Yes.
I mean, those numbers, they just jump out at you right away. I got to give it to you, man. Champ Bailey, man. I mean, one thing I'll remember about him is he was always around the ball.
And I think that's
even like, picking up fumbles. And it seemed like he was always getting his hands on the football.
I think that speaks to his athleticism.
Yeah.
Because he was able to recover, is able to, always able to use his speed to get back. I mean, another thing that when I was doing the research that I found really interesting was during his best, right? So his all-pro, the 3 years I gave you, which was 04 to 06, Denver's defense, shocked to everyone that their defensive coordinator was not Bill Belichick. It was a guy named Larry Coyer. So during his best years, they ranked 19 points in defense, 16 points, and 19 points. That ranked them 9th, 3rd, and 8th respectively as far as defense. When he fell off, when he got bad, they dropped all the way to 28th. Yeah. And 25 points a game. So he was really, I think one of the things, and it's not a knock against Ty Law because we're splitting hairs here. He really was he was the engine of that defense. He was the playmaker of that defense. Right. You didn't have this great defensive mind. You didn't have a lot of great defensive players around him. And unlike quarterback, I think defensive back, you do need some help.
Oh, definitely.
So
nobody
you look
can
at
cover forever.
No, and so you look at the players. The only player when I looked at that roster that you would know right off the bat is John Lynch, and John Lynch was kind of towards the end of his prime.
Yeah.
Whereas, Ty Law made his bones with, Bill Belichick and some of the great players.
You think about Vrabel, McGinnis, Brewski, all those guys, Seymour.
Will Fork, Seymour. They were loaded. Harrison.
Oh, they were. I mean, but then again, he was probably the captain of one of the greatest defenses of all time.
Yes.
I mean, and he really, shoot in this dynasty. I mean, like I said, he lit the torch for this dynasty. Not even Tom Brady can say that.
No.
I think Ty Law lit the torch for the Olympics. And you know what? Brady has carried it and Belichick for decades and decades now.
Yes.
But, I mean, let's not forget who lit that torch, man. Looking at Ty Law's resume, he played the same amount of seasons, 15, as Champ Bailey. And he led the league in interceptions twice, once in 98 and once in 05. Yeah, he's only a 2-time All-Pro. He made the squad in 98 and 03. 5-time Pro Bowler. He was the 1998 Pro Bowl co-MVP with Keyshawn Johnson. I don't even remember that.
No.
And the thing that I think he's going to hang his hat on is he's a 3-time Super Bowl champion.
Yes.
And, I think no matter what, that is why they play the game. To win that chip, it's to wear those rings. It's bragging rights over everybody else in the league. And not only was he part of a championship team, but let's face it, in those first 3 championships, the defense led the Patriots. It wasn't Tom Brady in the offense at that point.
No.
And Ty Law was the leader of that defense. And I think he deserves a lot of props for that.
He does. I mean, there's no comparison when you get into postseason. I think Champ Bailey tapped out like 2 interceptions in his postseason career. I agree with you in an extent. I mean, Brady still was clutch at times when he needed to be clutch, especially in the game against the Rams in the Super Bowl, which I think was, where you look at Ty Law kind of having that moment where he's crying and how much it meant to him to get through that,
Yeah.
I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Ty Law, was he on the Super Bowl one that lost to Green Bay?
Yes,
he was on the team. He was, right? So to experience that, he was relatively young, I believe, at that time.
I think he was a rookie.
He was. To go from that Super Bowl and wait so long to get it, I mean, it speaks volumes. But I just look at it like...
He's a second-year player, actually.
Yeah.
I think, yeah.
So for them, and I get it, man. When you can't compare postseasons because just Champ Bailey doesn't have it. But I think when you look at athleticism, when you look at career achievements, when you look at he was the model for their when he was great. The Broncos defense was great. They were getting into the playoffs. They were going deep in the playoffs. They just didn't have the defensive mind that Bill Belichick. They didn't have Tom Brady to kind of when things were tough or things were close. You knew, Ty Law was great because he kept you close, but Tom Brady was going to drive you down the field, get the winning field goal. Denver didn't have that. So no matter what Champ Bailey was able to do by himself, it's so much harder for a corner, especially a cornerback, to influence a game as far as winning, especially in the playoffs where defenses or offensive coordinators spend weeks trying to kind of scheme. They're going to scheme Champ Bailey. As great as Champ Bailey is, they're going to scheme him out of the picture. That's why he doesn't have a lot of great postseason numbers because, they didn't throw his way. Whereas you look at, I don't know what Peyton Manning was thinking, but it felt like every year Peyton Manning's he's got to be done now.
Yeah.
He's got to be done now. So while I agree with you in the long view and the big view of Ty Law as far as the postseason, I just think that as a player, Champ Bailey was able just to do more, amass more. And I mean, like I said, he beats them in all pros, Pro Bowls, pass defenses. I mean, I think Ty Law has one more interception.
Yeah, he has him 53-52.
Yeah, so, it's very close.
Look at the interception yards, 828 to 464. I mean, he's able to flip the field, get the field position, put your team on the other side of the ball, or even, defensive touchdowns. He leads 7-4. What do you do after the pick?
Yeah. And I mean, you look at, that's true. I'll give you that. But for Champ Bailey to be able to be great across, the Redskins, we forget how great he was with the Redskins.
I think he was better with the Redskins. I truly do.
Yeah. Yeah, it was hard because the Redskins were not good.
Yeah, that's why we don't remember them.
Yeah.
But he was good.
Yeah, he was. That's when he was at his peak.
I mean, one of my first memories of Champ Bailey where I was like, damn, this dude is a player, was his rookie year, week 1, against the Dallas Cowboys. He intercepted Troy Aikman, dude. I mean, sick, dude, on a corner route to Rocket Ismail. I never forget that, dude. And Troy Aikman was balling that game. I mean, I think he finished the game with like 5 touchdowns and like 300 and something odd yards, but Champ Bailey showed as a rookie he was not going to back down from Troy Aikman.
Yeah, and I mean, that's what you see because he's just his athleticism and his abilities. I mean, you look at that, and then going to Denver, and finally he gets matched with Mike Shanahan, who can at least put an offense together that would get you into the playoffs. And you got to see him get there and produce there. And against some of the same competition, I mean, against Peyton Manning, he's had picks against Rich Gannon when Rich Gannon was with Oakland, Trent Green. I mean, you see the things that they can do. The one thing also that I would end with this one is that when you look at Champ Bailey, he was the first team, the NFL Hall of Fame first team all 2000 defensive cornerback. So for the decade, he was the best. They considered him number 1. And he was a 1999 all-rookie team. So he came out from 99, was amazing. To be considered the best player at your position for a decade.
He came out guns blazing.
Yes.
I'll say that. In 99, like I said, you can tell this dude has confidence. And I think that's the number one attribute for a cornerback is to be able to have that confidence, similar to like a pitcher in Major League Baseball.
Yes.
You got to be able to put the last pitch behind you
and
just focus on the next one. And I think Champ Bailey showed that at a young age, but it kind of helps when you're playing with Deion Sanders and Green in your first 2 seasons, man.
Yeah, they're not throwing anywhere else but to you. I give you that.
So, they both had their fair share of fortunes. They played with plenty of talent, coached well. I think both had great coaches. Maybe not defensive coordinator, but, head coaches. I mean, those teams were managed right. I just think for me, when I look at some of the memories, this is where I think Ty Law gets a slight edge because you look at some of the memories. I talked about that memory of Champ Bailey, but that's week 1 in a regular season game, which is great. And it's amazing. You're picking off a fellow Hall of Famer in Troy Aikman. But what about like the pick 6 in Super Bowl 36? That is literally the moment that the torch was lit. They were down 0-3 to the greatest show on turf. The greatest show on turf was driving the ball, getting ready to score. And basically at this point, Tom Brady and the offense were struggling up to that point. And who lit that flame? It was Ty Law taking that ball and scoring, putting 6 on the board. And now the Patriots go up 7-3. And they end up, winning that Super Bowl, the first of many in this dynasty. And man, that is going to echo through eternity in NFL circles.
Yes, I get you on that. It's hard to compete with that because at the end of the day, Champ Bailey never got that opportunity to have that moment. But I always look at it like, man, you just have the guy who could put you in the right place at the right time. Like I said, I would never give a knock to having a great coach or great players. But when we're comparing greats, we're splitting hairs.
Yeah.
And to me, definitely. That's one hair I split is that, of course, look at what he had around him. Yeah, Tom Brady and them weren't the greatest, but Brady was still clutch even then.
Right.
And for them to be able to, I'll put it like this. If the Rams, if they go into overtime, Brady doesn't need them down, the Rams go win, kick a field goal, we don't talk about that.
Yeah.
It took Brady's ability to drive down and Vinatieri's kick for that to be a moment. That's a footnote without. That's a Randy Moss touchdown in the Super Bowl. Yeah, Randy Moss got a touchdown to go ahead, but we don't ever talk about the Randy Moss touchdown to go ahead in the Super Bowl for the undefeated Patriots because it got overshadowed.
Right.
that's where Tom Brady in the game against the Rams kind of helped that. So why we keep that memory. Whereas when I look at just why I picked Ty Law, why I picked Champ Bailey is very simple.
It's called a Freudian slip.
Yeah, no. So I was just talking about him. Edit that out.
Yeah.
Why I picked Champ Bailey and why I still think Champ Bailey is better overall is I look at his athleticism coupled with his abilities. And we see the quotes. He lined up everywhere.
Yeah.
He went across the board. He's one of those, people make a big deal about these man corners. But when you look at what Steve Smith said, he goes, if I lined up in the slot, he lined up in the slot. If I lined up at running back, he lined up at linebacker. If I parked my car in the parking lot, he was a parking attendant. He lined up everywhere. Everyone talks about this whole, do you follow the receiver? Champ Bailey followed.
Oh, yeah.
And dominated across the board.
Oh, without a doubt. He was locking down the best receivers on the opposite team for a decade. Another quote, since we're bringing up the quotes here, Bill Belichick himself, the GOAT, hey, he's not going to get too fancy on you, but he's going to say what needs to be said. And he puts great player. This is so Bill Belichick.
Yes.
Great player. Really no weaknesses in Ty's game. Strong, physical tackler. Could jam receivers. Good coverage player. Great hands. Interceptor. I really enjoyed coaching him. That's,
I hear it. I hear you talking, but I hear his voice.
Right. That's
Bill
is
Belichick.
The essence of Bill Belichick. And I think Ty Law, man, he was the key that got this dynasty through the door. And one more thing, I'm going to say this. This to me is the biggest moment in Ty Law's career. 3 interceptions in that 2003 AFC Championship game. So without a shadow of a doubt, I think this rivalry is the biggest rivalry of the early 2000s.
Yes.
Colts, Patriots. These two teams were epic, much like the Cowboys and the 49ers in the 90s.
Yes.
One of these two teams was going to win the Super Bowl. And, who's shifting the balance of power but Ty Law? Tom Brady and Peyton Manning at that point, that's a wash. Yeah. But it's the defense. And who leads the defense? It's Ty Law. So, the Colts were one of the most dominant offenses of all time, and they were on a roll in that postseasons. The Colts, they went into Foxborough with an offense that hadn't turned the ball over once or even punted once until they went to Foxborough, where they got not just slowed down, they got shut down.
Yes,
by Ty Law. 3 interceptions, almost single-handedly, man.
I give you that. It's hard to say that. He had that opportunity in the playoffs, but I go back to, and what's true is that, man, you have Bill Belichick just confusing the living hell out of Peyton Manning time and time again. Now, you still have to make the play. I'll give you that. But, that's why he's a great corner. He's a Hall of Famer because he made those catches.
Yeah. And I give it to Bailey. I think also, he also picked off Tom Brady in a divisional round.
Yeah,
right?
He picked him off, took him back to the house. He's picked off Ben Roethlisberger.
That sealed the game.
Yeah, that
knocked off the Patriots in the middle of the run.
Yeah, see, that's the one you remember going. Then they went on to the divisional, to the AFC Championship against the Steelers. But that's the one that kind of put a halt to New England for a while.
Just the fact that you can slow down the New England Patriots dynasty, that says a lot.
You stopped them for a year.
Yeah, that's big.
Yeah, it is. When you look at him, I just think that at the end of the day, I would take his ability because I feel like if I were to I can plug him in to Ty Law's position. Not as far as leadership, not as far as the torch here. That's Ty Law. But I can plug in the player, Champ Bailey, in that and have similar results. I don't know if I could take Ty Law and put him with the Redskins or put him with the Broncos and get the same results that Champ Bailey was able to get when he was dominating.
Yeah, that's fair because when I look at a lot of these games, even for the Cowboys throughout the years, he's picking off Drew Bledsoe. He's picking off Tony Romo. I remember one year, I can't remember the year, but it was in those 2009, 2008 seasons. And Tony Romo had the ball in the red zone, and he tried Champ Bailey 3 straight times. And I remember him being denied 3 straight times. Yeah. So believe me, I know what you mean. That if you switch this around, how do we know that Ty Law has the same success that he was able to have in New England? Because Champ Bailey was doing that with basically very little around him.
There was no Richard Seymour giving pressure. There was no Wilfork. There were no linebackers to worry about underneath routes.
Towards the end, he had Von Miller.
Yes, at the very end.
Yeah.
And he had John Lynch, but that was at the very end. Look at those when he was at his best. Those seasons I gave you, go look at their roster. You don't find a pass rusher worth anything There's no other great player on that roster, on that defense. And yet he helped. He's the reason why they had such a dominant defense. It was, like you said, whereas Ty Law was maybe the leader emotionally, was the team captain, it was a group effort of that defense that kept that. This one, it's Champ Bailey. And the proof is when Champ Bailey fell off, that defense fell off.
Yeah.
That's how great of a player he was. And he wasn't an edge rusher, because we know, edge rushers, you think they can influence the game. He wasn't a hard-hitting safety. He was just a linebacker. Or he was just a defensive back that wherever he lined up, he was going to make you pay if you threw anywhere near him.
Yeah, you couldn't make a lazy throw. I think Drew Bledsoe found that out a few times.
Yeah, it's very true.
So just to close this thing out, I'm going to lay it out on the line why I think Ty Law is the better cornerback of their era. Because again, I'm going to just say it one more time. Ty Law made the biggest plays on the biggest stages that will forever resonate through time. And I think he needs to be remembered for being the leader of this dynasty before Tom Brady hit his prime. I'm not going to speak ill of Champ Bailey, who was the most intimidating cornerback any wide receiver wanted to see. We talked about the Steve Smith quote.
That's Steve Smith.
You don't get a quote like that from Steve Smith, man. Steve Smith's hard as fuck.
Yeah.
We know that. We see that. And
he's not about to give I feel good for this. I'm going to say, no, you have to earn it with Steve Smith.
Right. Like I said, much like Peyton Manning and Tom Brady go with their comparison, Tom Brady is known for what he did in the postseason, whereas Manning is known for what he did throughout the regular season. And I think that's fair to compare with Champ Bailey and Ty Law. Champ Bailey is the Peyton Manning here, but Ty Law is Brady, and Brady is the GOAT.
I'm not going to argue with that part because it's hard to argue with postseason success. I think I'm just going to finish off with, we talk about Ty Law. Like you said, these are two great players. We both respect them both. I mean, I love Ty Law. Ty Law, I have because I grew up with that dynasty, I have a lot of Ty Law memories as far as his playoff games. So those are undeniable. You look at what, like you said, what Ty Law had around him versus what Champ Bailey had. And at the end of the day, individual, just as a player, the ability to go to more Pro Bowls, the ability to be one more of an All-Pro, to be an All-Decade team, an All-Rookie team, to lead the league as with all of them in pass breakups. I mean, other than INTs, that's the most important thing. And I think while Ty Law has the postseason, I think the talented player and the better player is Champ Bailey.
That's one that I think is going to be debated for years. So let us know who you think was the better cornerback of their era. Was it Ty Law and the postseason success? Was it Champ Bailey and the accolades and just overly impressive resume? Who you guys got? So this has been the 5th episode of Gridiron Fights. Until episode 6, we'll catch you guys all on the flip side.